It's an editor's worst nightmare, the revelation that a reporter made things up. It not only casts a pall over the newsroom, but creates lingering doubts about the publication's credibility. That's the situation the investigative website The Intercept now finds itself in. You could say Juan Thompson wrote with impact, giving voice to those who feel failed by the system, like the family of a murdered Baltimore teen.
And I interviewed her grandmother this morning, and the pain in this woman's voice as I spoke to her for the story that I published earlier this afternoon, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy.
If only it were true. That purported conversation is one of scores that The Intercept says it can't verify. In a note to readers, editor Betsy Reed says Thompson fabricated quotes and sources, going so far as to create fake email accounts to cover his deception. Needless to say, Thompson is out of a job.
I said things that were wrong.
Thompson's prevarications may not get the same attention as Brian Williams at NBC or Jason Blair at the New York Times, but there's a larger problem.
I'd like to begin today with a story about Bob Dylan.
Following other high-profile fakers like Jonah Lehrer and This American Life contributor Mike Daisey, it's another blow for a profession struggling to keep the public's trust.
If you go into these communities and you talk to people, then I think you can be an effective reporter and journalist.
Sadly, Thompson's deception does nothing to help those he says he was trying to help. The thing that's shocking about this in this day and age, I mean, maybe back in days of Janet Cook, what was that, 30 years ago or 40 years ago now? It was harder to find this out. We didn't have the kind of resources we have to check a quote, to check where somebody lives, to check if somebody exists. And in this case, I think he said he was doing an interview with a cousin of Dylan Roof, who was the alleged murderer of the people of the Baptist Church. And then the family came forward. What? Well, if we have a relative by that name, we don't know who it is. And that was sort of like triggered this whole thing. But the idea that somebody thinks they're going to be able to, operate with impunity and not ever be fact-checked. I mean, you're in the newspaper business for years. What are they thinking?
No, two things. Number one, there is just a presumption of trust when you're in the business that somebody who works for you and is out there doing journalism, that they're telling the truth. And we're
as an editor, you think?
As an editor, you're probably setting yourself up. When somebody comes along like a Stephen Glass, like a Jason Blair, it's shocking because that trust that you have is broken. But I think this does say something about the way The Intercept operates, which is not good.
We should explain what that is. For
The Intercept is it's a purely online investigative reporting center, primarily. Glenn Greenwald. Yeah, that was primarily set up for national security kinds of issues. And so it needs to have a very high level of credibility for it to go on. It's going to suffer for this. Yeah. This is not good at all. So, go ahead.
When I was reading about this case, we've all, I think, run into people in some job or another, some walk of life or another, that like to lie and do it for no reason and embellish just because they can, and they get some sort of weird enjoyment out of it. I think in journalism there's an extra peril that so many people go into it because they want to be able to capture essential truths about the world around them. And sometimes, if you combine that urge with a lack of accountability, because there is this sort of presumption that people are coming back with legit stuff, I think that for a certain personality type, there is an urge to embellish, to make that truth as sort of perfect as it can possibly be. Who did this is the late, great, and much heralded Joseph Mitchell, who wrote for The New Yorker and created composite characters and fabricated dialogue. He has a legion of defenders, which continues to blow me away.
Brian Williams.
Brian Williams, too.
He always had to have the best story in the room.
Yep.
Well, what gets me is that the thing that I knew his work for was, of course, the interview with Chris Roof, the killer of the 9 people in Emmanuel Church, his cousin. Yeah.
And
I kept thinking, Dylan Roof, what I say,
right.
Chris Roof was the cousin.
The cousin.
Yeah, allegedly, the made-up cousin. Yeah. And I kept thinking, wow, how'd you get this? So to me, to your point, many other reporters would say, wait a minute, I would like the cousin. How do you get the cousin? It seems like that would have come out faster. That it is shocking to me that because I believe that. Because I was thinking, boy, that is some good journalism.
That's what did him in. Because you know how everybody copies everybody else's sources? They went running to try to find the cousin, and they're going, wait a minute, we can't find any cousin.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A couple of things. First of all, I want to pick up on Tom's point about what The Intercept is. This is part of the First Look Media mini empire founded by eBay's Pierre Omidyar. And it hasn't gone well. I mean, they've just had one problem after another, with a number of high-level resignations, reports of chaos within the organization. So this doesn't help. I mean, this can happen at some of the best news organizations in the country, and it has, but it is particularly harmful to First Look Media for this to happen. The other thing is, apparently, The Intercept has been acting as something of a wire service to a lot of other news sites, and so they have made a lot of enemies over this, and I think it's going to take a while for them to recover
Little
from this.
Schadenfreude going on
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
media world. Yeah.
Absolutely.